Welcome to the Kickstart Your Coaching Edge podcast, where it's all about getting real around all things coaching.
And what we know for sure is that what got you here won't get you there.
You can't see the spinach in your own teeth.
And finally, hang on, because this one's really deep. Once you realize that you are the traffic, everything makes complete and unadulterated sense.
Hey, Karen, you ready to riff? Commence riffing. I love it. Right before we hit record, we're like, let's just riff on that and see what happens. And so that is exactly what we're going to do as we talk today about problem solving. That is the theme that we have for this entire month. And let's begin to riff, Karen.
Well, it's problem solving as it relates to emotional intelligence. So we're not going to just sit here and say, okay, great, we're going to solve this problem. All right. That's not what this is about. What this is about is making sure that we're understanding the correlation between problem solving and emotional intelligence. And what I'm going to do just really quickly is I am going to read the definition of problem solving for you regarding emotional intelligence. So problem solving relates to your ability and tendency to both solve problems that involve emotions and to use emotions as an effective problem-solving tool. So I'm going to read it one more time. Are you ready, Jen? So
I'm ready.
It is problem-solving relates to your ability and tendency both to solve problems that involve emotions and to use emotions as an effective problem-solving tool. Just a heads up, that definition alone, you could create a program around because it's huge. Yes, Jen, I'm going with huge again with you. So when you think about problem solving, there's just so much meat in this definition here. And because if you can sit here and say, what's your ability and tendency to both solve problems that involve emotions and couple that with how do you use emotions as an effective problem solving tool? I mean, I got to tell you, there's a lot of information there.
Let's actually break that down. Let's talk today about how to solve problems that involve emotions. And the next episode, we will use how to solve problems using emotions.
Okay.
You didn't sound convinced on that, Karen Sullivan.
I'm all right, go with it. But just really quickly though, there's actually studies. Before we just really dive into that, Jen, I just want to just give a tiny bit of background here. But there's actually studies that they've done, all the emotional intelligence gurus like Daniel Goleman, and I forgot another guy whose name begins with a G. But there's a real positive correlation between your emotional intelligence and your ability to solve problems. And people who can recognize and control their emotions exhibit more positive approaches to problems, and they can solve them more easily. Now, you could define easily, but and people that can't use their emotions, they can't really communicate effectively. They can't control their emotions in a crisis or under stress to really solve problems that well. So I think that, again, we talked a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, I don't even remember, about the reliability that comes with emotional intelligence and this emotional intelligence assessment. But again, there's studies that back this up again and again and again. Now, we can talk about whatever you'd like, Jen.
No, but it ties right into exactly what you're saying, right? So one of the things to realize is that often when we see things as a problem, emotions are involved, right? So confusion, frustration, irritation, anger, all of those kinds of things tend to be coupled with problems. Opportunities tend to have excitement, joy, curiosity, those kinds of things. So, right. So when we look at about solving problems that involve emotions, it's about how do you extract the emotion to understand what the real problem actually is. Now, easier said than done, right? So when we're wound for sound and we're viewing something as a problem, it's hard to get out of our own way. But when we can use that to say, this emotion is standing between me and a solution. This emotion is standing between me and an understanding of what's really happening. When we can objectively look at, it's not saying the emotion's right or wrong. It's just saying the emotion is hijacking what the real problem actually is. And the more that we can separate the two, the more we can understand the data from the emotion, as well as to say, what is the real problem? And how is my emotion elevating that, escalating that, de escalating, or minimizing what's truly happening?
Yeah, and I like that, Jen, because I think that one of the things that people need to really understand is, what is the problem, right? And when your emotions are kind of hijacked, right? When your amygdala gets triggered, we start to go off in all sorts of wacky directions, and we don't really make very sound decisions because we tend to focus on what's at the surface rather than going to what's really happening. And we might put, as we talk about a lot of times, right, we'll put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole in the moment, but then that problem's going to keep coming back because why, Jen, you didn't get the bullet out.
That's right. It's even when you think about it, right? So one of the ways to be able to use emotional intelligence when your emotions are hijacked and it's creating a problem for you, right? And you see things as a problem, is how do you objectively take the problem out from the emotion? So one of the things that Karen and I talk about all the time is TFAR. We love it. Your thoughts create your feelings create your actions create your results. There's always a trigger or a situation or an objective stimulus that is happening. There you go. I love that. So one of the ways to do this is to pull out objectively what is the situation that is causing the emotional reaction. State it in a fact. Don't throw in all your story that goes with it, because story creates the emotion. Being able to define what's the real problem will help us be able to understand then what do we want to feel about that, or what feeling would we need to highlight to be able to work through it. It's going to give us more of an objective playing field to say, okay, so here it is without all the emotion wrapped in it. What's the real problem?
Yeah, and that's the key. What's the real problem? Because it's really not the problem that you're probably being presented with. So, it could be something along the lines of, how do I quote unquote fix this? Well, before you fix it and put that Band-Aid on that bullet hole, it's what caused it. Like this even, Jen, goes to like the thing behind the thing, to figure out what's really, really happening there.
It's so true, right? So it's even, let's say that you have a situation where the problem is that you don't know what's expected of you for something you volunteer for. And what happens is there's poor communication. People send out emails and only half the information is there. And you have a lot of confusion around where you need to be and when you need to be there. And you have a lot of frustration at the person who's doing the coordination. And what happens is we tend to do things like this. We'll say, I can't believe the communication is so bad. And I can't believe they're doing such a horrible job of keeping us informed. And I volunteer my time and they don't even respect my time. And I'm spending all this energy. So all of a sudden, the problem is around the communication in our minds. The real problem is we don't know where to be and when we should be there. So what I'm saying here is that if we were to objectively say, what problem am I trying to solve? Well, it's not about rewriting their communication platform. It's about understanding the expectations. So how can I solve that problem without going in the spin cycle of the frustration of how something is being done? It gives you back your power, right? So if I sit there and go objectively, the real problem is I don't know what's expected of me. And my thoughts are how everyone sucks in their communication. That's not solving the problem. Picking up the phone, rereading a document, reaching out to somebody, asking a colleague, or proactively getting the information, whatever, that's going to help you solve it. What happens is we tend to get stuck in the emotional drama we have around the story about the problem more so than the problem.
Yeah, and I think, Jen, it's really all about, and I know next time we're going to talk about 4 different steps to really use emotional intelligence as a problem solving tool. But one of the big things here initially, based on what it is that you just said, you have to call that internal timeout. And because you could go, you know how I talk about a lot of times, I could go from 0 to Jersey, boom, really, really quick. And that usually doesn't give me the best outcomes, right? Or the best results. However, if I could just for, just a second or two be like, okay, what's really happening here? All right, great. I want to call my own internal timeout and say, how do I want to play this? And what's really going on?
And when you can do that, instead of going from 0 to Jersey, well, that would be huge.
You can't say it right. Huge, Barley, just huge.
If you want to get certified in the EQI 2.0 assessment, which is all about understanding and helping your clients with their emotional intelligence, our next certification course is coming up on November 4th, 5th, 11th, and 12th. It is completely virtual. You too can be a part of it, and we want to get you registered so that you can see your own emotional intelligence. To check out the information, go to kickstartyouredge.com/EQI. All right, you guys, great riffing with you, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Kickstart Your Coaching Edge podcast. Craving more in-depth discussions? Check out the Get Real Inner Circle with our no BS in-crowd of coaches.
Join live coaching discussions, breakdowns of coaching calls, and have some fun while you're at it.
You're going to want to go to kickstartyouredge.com/inner circle. It's time to get real.